worked on the side. It is how I think proposals and capture and BD and solutions and writers and all should work together on deals. It's not what we do typically, but hopefully you'll see some similarities on the best things that we do, and maybe we'll choose to do more of it. We are running a couple pilots is what's going on right now. All right, so this woman is Angel. This is I put it in the form of a course. I will just rip through this right now to get through it. And I know I don't want to bore you guys with exercise or anything. She works for Big Dog Systems. Her primary customer is Aaron and his colleagues at the Federal Systems Department. And she's in software development. If she were in software development back when I was in software development last century, this would have been the activities that she would have been prescribed to do software development. And a lot of what drove those activities and the documentation around those activities was the truism that if you found a defect early in the process, say in requirements, it would be orders of magnitude less expensive to get rid of that defect early in the process, to say, hey, this button should be yellow instead of red, and it should be on this window instead of that window. And it got progressively expensive. You know, if it went all the way to production, it cost a lot to fix that defect. And because of that, we created documentation, a lot of it. And we documented requirements down to the 1.3.4.x level. And we said that this red button would have this impact when you pushed it. And we pulled those requirements into the architecture, and we did detailed requirements reviews and design reviews. And we even tried to trace requirements through each architectural element, high-level design element, low-level design element. And we built, if you were around on any large software development project, we built requirements that could have been appropriate for an aircraft carrier if you did any like large DoD program or things like that. And we had our reviews, and those reviews made sure all of those boxes were checked and all of the traceability worked and all of the other quality aspects were in there. And this came to be known as the waterfall process. And then some people, very smart people, insightful people, sort of called a timeout and said, hey, you know, yes, all these processes and tools and comprehensive documentation is good, but there's more value on the left side of these columns than on the right side of these columns. And if we put the power in the people instead of the process, and in focus on working software over comprehensive documentation, good things happen. We'll be coming back to that. So if we view this waterfall process as tool heavy, process heavy, comprehensive documentation heavy, following a plan, the alternative was the Agile methods, where we said, we'll try to get requirements sort of right in the beginning, but we will focus more on getting something built, a minimally viable product, not maximally viable product, and we will get it in the hands of our customers as soon as possible, and they will tell us whether the button should be red or yellow or be on this window or that window, as opposed to trying to just exhaustively figure it out in requirements. And we will put the power in individuals and interactions over the process. And in many ways, that put to bed this very well-intentioned, let's document the crap out of everything and try to figure it out ahead of time before we actually focus on working software. All right. So where do Agile methods apply the best? If Angel worked for Big Dog Motors instead of Big Dog Software, and she was in charge of car development, what would apply? Certain Agile things could apply for sure. There could be simulators in the requirements part of developing a car. There could be scale models run by potential users or car buyers, and there would be some level of agility that might be possible early in the requirements phase. But later on, when you have to start preparing the assembly lines and the construction and the distribution, certainly Agile methods are not applicable there. That's where you've got to get things right because of stuff that we'll talk about later. If instead she worked for Big Dog Construction and her job was to replace the key bridge, where do Agile methods apply? And the answer is nowhere. For a bridge, where you have to get things right back in the requirements phase and you cannot change course later on down the road, Agile methods have no business in this process. All right, why? So a lot of it depends on where your resource costs are. In software, a lot of them are on the left side of this cycle, where I would call it engineering and elaboration. Certainly most of our costs in software, when it comes to construction, distribution, in the age of DevOps, construction is a push button, distribution is basically free when it comes to software. Most of the effort is on the left side of this. That's where Agile methods shine. When you go over to the bridge and the car, a lot of the resource costs are in the construction, the distribution of these things, and that's where a waterfall method is more appropriate. All right, so from another perspective, from a learning perspective, on the scale of whether your customer loves what you're building or not, in the waterfall method, a lot of the learning comes as much as you can up front in the requirements phase. Often, the next time that you really get feedback from your customer is in the acceptance test phase. And the learning curve tends to go something like this. When you introduce Agile methods to software development, you get learning each time that you can deliver a version of the product into your customer's hands. And they get to vote with, you do these as early and as often as possible with a relatively high frequency, and you get feedback with each delivery to your customer. And the difference in those curves often equates to customer satisfaction with the delivered product. Okay, we go back to Angel, and she goes back to her job in Big Dog Systems, but now she's in proposal development. And the process that she's given is usually she gets a solicitation, and her process looks something like this. She goes through, maybe we do a blue team where we say this is how the outline is going to work. Maybe we do a pink team with storyboards, red team, etc., gold team, white team. And this is a lot like the waterfall method. So where should it be? Where should a proposal effort fall? And, of course, I'm leading the witness here, but I will say that most of a proposal efforts are in the engineering of the proposal and the elaboration as opposed to the construction and the distribution of a proposal. And so the manufacturing, if you will, of a proposal. And so I will argue that proposals should be done with a more agile method. On the learning side, now we don't have a customer that we can, if this picture of people is our source selection board, we have to sort of approximate the source selection board with internal people, maybe consultants, maybe executives who are going to evaluate the proposal before it can actually be delivered. In the waterfall method, I will say a lot of times we don't give them something to evaluate that they can really evaluate until red team. It's nice if we can give them something in, pink team that's really evaluatable, but often it's not. It's um, and is there an alternative where we could get something in their hands earlier and more often where people can say, hey, you're going in the right direction, you're not going in the right direction? Let's see. So if this is the waterfall method, what does this look like? What does an agile method for proposals look like? All right, so I'll attach the following a plan and the right side of the manifesto to the top process. What does this look like? All right, so here's what we typically do on proposals. We get the solicitation or maybe a draft, sections L and the SAO and all, and we shred it. And we get it into a shredded outline. We typically create a PMP around that outline. We assign writers to each section of the PMP, and we say, you're going to have a pink team on this date, red team on this date, gold team, et cetera, et cetera. Here's some reusable content that you might want to work into your sections, go to town. And I will, again, equate that with a waterfall-ish process. So what's an alternative? A lot of it is what can we call a working proposal, an MVP for a proposal? And for these purposes, I'll equate a proposal to a value proposition. And a value proposition can be done at multiple levels of abstraction. It could be done in a phrase. Sometimes, our CCO, our last CCO proposal was, we're going to give you a better CCO every year. And now that the recompete's going on, we're hanging our hat on, here's what we told you every year. And we're saying, and we delivered every year. So you can give not a detailed, not a, thorough, but a complete value proposition in a phrase or phrases, or there's an elevator pitch, or other levels of abstraction all the way down to the full proposal with the complete volumes. And the point is just that value propositions exist at multiple levels of abstraction, multiple levels of decomposition. In the proposal world, a phrase, a value proposition of a phrase might be a tagline. It might be that a better CCO every year. It may be in the form of win themes, an executive summary, a technical approach, a whole proposal. So what I will propose is that if we focus on an executive summary early enough, we can treat that as a minimally viable proposal that can work in an agile way. The methods that I'm proposing here, that we actually did just a couple months ago, get this email from a consultant, and this is, the proposal manager was Marty and the agency was CMS, and this was a consultant evaluating our draft executive summary for CMS, or for CCO, the second version. Okay, if we go up to the top of this level of value proposition, the tagline and the win themes, now it's time to view the working proposal as a success story. And who are the protagonists of the success story? The customer. Often we lose sight of this, and the protagonists of our proposals is Maximus. And we come right out of the gate waving, Maximus is wonderful, you love Maximus. And we make it like it's a Maximus success story. It's not. It shouldn't be. It is the customer. And often it's a subset of the customer. It's not, IRS. It is a subset of IRS that we are writing this proposal for. And the time period of this success story is not the past. We can't be looking backwards and saying, you love us. You should hire us again because you love us. We worked so hard through COVID. We got you these you gave us these kudos. That's not the primary success story that we're telling. We need to tell a future success story in our proposals. The ideal when we're talking taglines and win themes are things that these people would want to put on their annual goals. They want that the perfect tagline and win themes would be things that they could cut right out and that he could use to turn his 14 into a 15, or that she could use to, if she achieved them, to get her SES from her current 15. That's the, those are the, that would be, that's the perfect heuristic for taglines and win themes. All right, these are taglines of companies. The one thing that our tagline is not is Maximus is great. That's just too, it's very tempting to want to say that right off the bat. It's not the theme of our of any of our proposals. Okay, so then in a course, I would take this through. This is a real solicitation for USCIS. It was called fads. It was issued in the late teens. I won't go through this. I won't go through this in detail. I will say this was literally cut from the proposal. This is how they introduced their their solicitation. This would be a perfect win theme. Because if we knew in through insight that was their vibe heading into this proposal, this would be a perfect win theme for our response. And it still even could be, except obviously they sort of gave it to us. I won't go through these things, but this was for an electronic immigration system. USCIS was a leader on the Agile side of things, so they were all about saying you should do Agile. All right, when it comes to a tagline, the best assessors of what a good tagline might be are our consultants, our BD folks who can channel the customer, especially the evaluators, not us. So it matters most what would resonate with them, of course. Um, I don't want to go through the details. The only thing that I do want to point out here is these are not good win themes. You know, Big Dog is the #1 Agile provider to USCIS, even if we are. Scaled Agile success from Big Dog is not a win theme. Something about them, something that they view as their future success. All right, down to win themes. A lot of the same things apply, but again, we're telling a success story here. And our win themes should be things that they achieve, of course, if they hire Maximus. Um, and it's things that this group achieves. And in the same way that you're told to on your annual goals to be smart, that's what our win theme should be. Same rules apply. And to those, I would add concise as possible. We do not need win themes that are full sentences, definitely not full paragraphs, definitely not multiple sentences, things that you can keep in short-term memory. Often it is our business development folks, our consultants who are the best assessors of win themes, certainly the people who have the customer's head. Sometimes they're given to us. Sometimes we can't do better than read the solicitation, the goals of the solicitation, or the agency strategic plan. That's cool. That's what everybody does. That will not differentiate us, but sometimes that's the best we can do. What they are not is we're #1 or you love us. That is very tempting. Go into our proposals. You'll see it. Try to get rid of it when you can. Okay, so again, I don't want to go through details here. I picked 3 of these that might be reasonable win themes. A lot of times if we're the incumbent, we want to say there's no transition risk. That is a real potential win themes. Other than that, I just picked 2 others that would be reasonable. All right, what do we do with them? All right, so if you want somebody's attention, you offer them $100. And our win themes and our tagline is our version of offering them $100, getting their attention right off the bat in our proposals by offering them $100. Where do we put them? This is now we're into style, but to me the our tagline, if it's good enough, should go on the cover of our proposal. Sometimes our win themes can go on the cover of our proposal. I think that it's always worth thinking about whether we can put our tagline on every page of our proposal. Certainly our win themes should get up on the front page, on the first thing that they read. All right, so we have taglines and win themes. Let's go a little bit deeper into paragraphs, elevator pitch level stuff that's going to go in the executive summary. And for these purposes, we will relook at a proposal as a persuasive argument. All right, this is the best way to give a persuasive argument in a proposal. I'll let you guys read these. It's there's nothing magic in here. 2 and 3 can sometimes be dovetailed. In other words, we have a solution and it has these components, and each component gives you a certain benefit. But 2 should always come after 1. We should always tell them that we've done our homework and we hear them before we get into our solution. And we should not get into, we are awesome at this, until after we've presented our solution to them. It's the kill shot, if you will. Our proof points should be our kill shots at each specific spot in our proposals. All right, I won't go into details, but ways that we tell them that we hear them in the front of our proposals. We can say, we know what this procurement's about. We know that you're consolidating a bunch of things and you're trying to drive cost out, or you're splitting apart things and now small business things are driving are your highest priority, or anything else where we have insight as to what this procurement is trying to achieve. We can start with some background, ideally not the background that's cut and pasted from the proposal, but something that adds a level of insight as to we're not going to live in the past, but we know what happened in the past that's relevant to this procurement and the solution. We could say, here are the top 3 challenges here. And again, these are ideally not cut from the solicitation, but real challenges that we know the agency or group is having around this. We could take it right out of the solicitation or their strategic plan, but ideally, we add a level of insight of why. Just some tiny thing that says, we get it. We've done our homework and we hear you. All right, we have a solution for that. This is, we're going to summarize our solution high enough in our proposal, maybe on the first page, and that solution is going to deliver benefits. We're going to have to chunk our solution somehow. It's good if we can get it into 3. We usually try to put our solution on a page. Ideally, this is something that they'd want to put on their door. This is our version of, do you view that this is your vision of success, not ours? This is not a Maximus drawing. This is obviously, this is ideally a success from their perspective. Ideally, we can take this solution down into its components, and now we have our typical feature benefit table. To that, our best practices are we add a risk of alternatives, and this is where all of our ghosting stuff goes. And we say, we're telling you this, we know you're hearing from Accenture this, here's why they're full of shit. Here's why they are wrong, here's what's wrong with all the competitors coming at us, and just be upfront about that in our executive summary to the extent that we can. And then finally, we get to the bottom and we're great at this. Now's the time to wave the we're number 1 flag. Okay, so we have a relatively complete executive summary in the form of a value proposition. It is sort of paint by numbers, and it can be treated like a paint by numbers, and we do often treat them as paint by numbers. Some optional elements. It's always good if we can show an org chart of our delivery team with faces on their on the org. It is better if we can align our folks to their folks. and say, these people on the right here, their sole purpose in life is to make you happy, and here's how they're going to do it. These are very effective when we can do them. Sometimes we can't, if we don't know the customer this well, but good aspirationally. I call these our man-to-man defense tables. Often good, likewise, if we can say we understand that you are not some monolithic agency over there and IRS gets this benefit and IRS gets that benefit. But if we say that we understand that you are really a bunch of different constituencies over there, and some of them are your customers are going to benefit from a better immigration system, and your cyber organization has a different angle on this thing, and your leadership wants to tell this to Congress, etc. And if we can give those different constituencies what they want, or at least consider it, we're better off. This is what we do also. Of course, when we're incumbents, it's easy to do this, and it differentiates us when we can get this in our proposals. All right. A lot of times we want to get our partnership table into the executive summary. I think that we force fit this too often because we're so proud of it, but whatever. Sometimes it belongs up there. I would say that what matters the most to evaluators is the value that these organizations bring to the customer, not, certainly the socio status belongs in our small business plan or things like that, rarely in our executive summary, but again, whatever. All right, now we have a more rich persuasive argument across an executive summary. Again, more paint by numbers, and it's bigger. One thing I'd like to call out is, did we need the RFP or the draft RFP for any of this? Obviously, we could talk about it, but the answer is no. We could have developed this whole executive summary without a draft RFP or an RFP. Now things that could go into an executive summary that we do need the draft RFP for. We should put in here, a lot of times it's not a straightforward how we map section L, section M, the SAO, et cetera, into our technical approach, management approach, et cetera. We should spoon feed them that. We should always try to spoon feed them those choices, how we ended up doing that, just to put the reader, the evaluator at ease. Spoon feed them that in the executive summary so that they don't have to dig through the compliance matrix to try to figure it out. Talk to them. Likewise, if they tell us they're going to score us on clear understanding, achievable approach, strengths, etc., we will tell them that we're going to spoon feed you what's on your rubric throughout our proposal. We're going to, show you exactly where our strengths and benefits are. Cut them out and put them in your evaluation sheet if you want. They're all going to be identified easily for you. All right. So we now have a full working proposal in the form of an executive summary. What do we do with it? All right, first, who builds it? And if we are using Agile methods, this is the description of an Agile team. I'll let you guys read this. What does this mean in terms of a proposal? To me, so it's really the team needed to complete the details of this level of an executive summary. To me, it's just about everybody. There's a role for many people to play, of our growth team members or our growth oriented folks. All right, I can go through who's going to typically write the different parts. Certainly, maybe BD can write the procurement objectives. Maybe Capture can. Maybe it's somebody on the program. Likewise, I don't want to go through these in detail, but one thing it's not tech writers. It's not people that we throw this to a tech writer and say, fill this thing out. This is something that we've all got to get on board and start and help in these, with these things, or it's best if we do. We can talk through this. Usually solutions or some solution architect-ish kind of person is going to drive this part. Likewise, when we decompose our solution into benefits and features, a solution architect-y kind of person or somebody playing that role. Who writes Big Dog is number one? I think we get marketing involved, not as much as we could sometimes in our proposals, at least at the high levels, to say, here's how we can make us look best as as concisely as possible. Typically, ops is the one that starts to do the org chart or our delivery teams and maybe can align them with a customer, et cetera, et cetera. This is typically a proposal manager that figures out how this thing was shredded and can explain back to the reader what the choices were in terms of how we overlaid our approach onto their required outline. All right, so what do we do with it? This is where I would say we start working the Agile process. And again, we can't present this to the actual recipients, the source selection board, but we can present this to our executives. And I would say that a working executive summary is much more digestible, evaluatable by folks like Scott than a typical pink team version is. And I think we could get a lot of, valuable feedback if we restricted put our initial review, maybe what we call a pink team, around an executive summary as opposed to a bunch of storyboards and things like that. At the same time, we need, I'll say a role. This is a role that my team typically plays, a value prop quarterback that says, here are the checks that we wrote up in the executive summary and how those are going to be cached in various sections down the proposal. Maybe we said, we're going to deliver full zero trust to you. Well, we better go down into the different parts of the proposal and say, well, here's this part of zero trust that you better cash the check. Different writers. All right. Ultimately, we get down to the writers and what do they get then in this way of thinking. All right, so there's Pratima, and she was assigned to write section 3.2, which is aligned to the SOW section 6.4, test and integrate. We are also going to give her a template, if you will, that says section M says they were going to evaluate us on understanding approach to that. Let's organize our approach down here at this level into those things that they're going to evaluate. We told you that there was, someone pulled out the parts of the executive summary and the parts of our solution that we want to make sure that you substantiate in detail down here. And if you notice now down at this, even at the lowest levels of our proposal, we're giving them complete persuasive arguments in terms of clear understanding is we hear you, we have an approach, that approach gives benefits, and only at the bottom of that, and we've done this before and we're great at it. Okay, so if this is just how to write, we can get a lot better in our proposal writing. I won't go through the details here, but I have a way of, if instead of test and integrate, it was installing Ring doorbells, you'd be surprised how often we say, we understand you because we're number one. We understand you because installing doorbells is really important, or you need somebody like us to do it. Those are not understandings. Instead, we should just tell them things that we really do understand. And we shouldn't say we understand. So there's just a bunch of how you write these different sections. An approach, the best approaches, the text in the middle is the same text on the right for the most part. When they ask us for an approach, we should give them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even if it's not a sequential process, it's just how people who know what they're talking about present information. You can imagine a cookbook written in paragraphs as opposed to steps. It could be the same words, and which one is better? Strengths and benefits, again, Often we want to say we're number one or Maximus is great. That's the strength of this thing. It's not. It's strengths in their world, things that matter to them. Those are what strengths are. Um, and then finally, there is a room for Maximus is number one. It comes at the bottom of a persuasive argument, at the bottom of each detailed section. We often want to put it at the top. You end up with, things like this. I won't go through these details, but it's considerate to your readers when you structure stuff like this. We also do a lot of, I'll say, it's exhausting when you read proposal red teams and you have sentences like the left. They're all over the place in our things. Our evaluators are no more impressed with this than you guys are right now. And what we want is more stuff like that. And the way, to me, this was a book that it's a tiny book that I wish we could just ruthlessly follow. We'll see. All right. So now we have a way to do all of our executive summary, all of our management section, all of our technical sections. What do we do with these things? We run them through red teams. When everything starts to coalesce, we run them through a gold team, through a white glove, etc. I just want to make a point about red teams. We seem to want them to always be aligned. There's no need for that. Our typical red team evaluators have a lot easier time pulling an hour out of their day to evaluate one section of a proposal as opposed to blocking a half day burning out through a whole technical proposal and trying to get through it. As different parts of a proposal are red team ready, we should get them evaluated like that. I won't jump up and down about that. Okay, so back to Angel. She has created a new process where proposal development is now done by a full growth team. We take the solicitation, and a lot of the activities that we do are now done more using Agile methods. And it works. And as a result, she gets a promotion to account management and deal management. And now she's in charge of things all the way from the beginning of the opportunity through the proposal. And the process that she's given. All right, so now in addition to an executive summary, she's focused on winning this deal, not just through the proposal, but all the other activities that go into winning. And she's given a process that looks something like this. Oh boy. We have, she has come up with techniques that deal with these waterfall-ish kind of processes. And first thing is around what can we be doing in terms of winning? All right, so what I don't want to get lost in is, so if this whole team is now focused on winning, not just producing a good proposal, I don't want to get lost in whether our win rate indicators are good or not. To me, they're reasonable, but they are at least concise, and they're not, if I say that I need to be at a 4 versus a 3, it's pretty reasonable to me. What at least it doesn't require is for you to do 10 slides that say, I need this to go from a 3 to a 4. It can be a quick discussion. It's concise. So we have, our win rate indicators are this. Again, I don't want to get this into whether these are the right ones or whether they're reasonable. But to me, the concept is reasonable and it's reasonably concise. So, if winning actions, activities can be scored at this level, then we have our Agile, we have the full thing that our Agile growth team needs to work on. They're going to build an executive summary right off the bat. They're going to gradually, when the solicitation hits, work that into a proposal. And we're going to do whatever activities we decide are important to winning this deal. And we'll take it from opportunity to proposal. We will, if we want to go further in the Agile direction, a lot of these ceremonies sort of apply. I wouldn't use the word ceremonies, that'll scare people away, but if it, to those who it doesn't scare away, these could be evaluated in 2 to 4 week sprints. At the beginning, we'll talk about what a plan might be, at the beginning of these sprints. There doesn't have to be daily meetings, but there could be frequent meetings, and these are not meetings that are jammed onto your calendar, once a week and waste a half hour talking about what your weekend was, but just gets right down to what parts of the summary have you done? What blockers do you have? What do you get? What are you going to do before the next meeting? Done. And then what are we going for in the next, sprint, if we decide to call it that? Just a notional deal. And again, I don't want to scare people away, but if this were, say, an 8-month deal pursuit, what might a sprint look like? It may be we're trying to get through these parts of the executive summary over the next couple of weeks and assign owners to them. It may be I'm trying to get more customer intimacy. I'm trying to get that from a 3 to a 4, for example. Maybe we start, a lot of these things are not very different from what we do. We have our deal reviews now. We could still call them deal reviews. There's no need to introduce Agile terminology into this. Maybe we have, 3 or 4 week sprints in the beginning, and they're no different from monthly reviews. Maybe they turn into 2-week sprints once the typical capture thing goes. Maybe we keep our names for pink, once the proposal's out, for pink and red and gold and things like that. All right. So we now have an Agile deal team working around Agile, using Agile methods. And so she's put in charge of a whole account because this seems to work. And this is really nothing more than, if we have an Agile account team, is making a backlog for this team. Maybe this team turns into a durable team. And again, I'm using terms that I know this is what we do. So this is how, when we have a good group of people that knows how to attack business, we keep them together. They get to learn their accounts and things like that. So it's not that different from what we do. An account backlog is really nothing more than Salesforce. And I will wrap up with, so this is, I don't know how much of this can work at Maximus. We are piloting it in a few areas, in civilian and one within TCS. I know Jen and Candace are working together, just to see how things go. And as a result of that, I guess Jen suggested, that I present it to you guys. So I'm open to support it to whatever extent that, I and my team are open to support this to whatever extent that you guys want to try it out or not.
So, Todd, thank you. This was very helpful. Cooper, you can probably stop the recording. I have a question.